the appropriate B cell. And so basically, because on the surface of these B cells are these antibodies that are stuck on the surface of the B cell. And on the very tips of these, each one of these little tips might be able to fight a different type of organism. So let's say this B cell can fight chickenpox, and this one can fight smallpox, and this fights a specific type of bacteria. The way it knows is by the tips over here. These are the binding sites of the different B cells, and they're different for different types of organisms. So I showed them here. So what you're going to have then is the helper T is going to, go around, and it's going to find the appropriate one that this fits with that antigen that came in. So let's say this is the one. This one's going to be ignored. This one's going to be ignored. It's going to select this, and then this B cell is going to be the one that proliferates. Okay, so it is a selection and then a clonal. But in your book, or the way we refer to it is, we call it clonal selection, kind of the opposite of what it's done. It clones and selects, but in reality, it selects and then clones. So that's the clonal selection. It's when you're looking for that appropriate B cell, and the way you're able to find it is by these different attached antibodies that are on the outside, each with specific receptors at their tips that are made to attack that specific invading antigen. So that's one. That's the clonal selection theory. The other thing is that sometimes there's what you call a polyclonal response. Polyclonal response means maybe there's more than one of these B cells that can attack chickenpox, which makes sense, because otherwise if there's a mutation or something occurs, that B cell is not going to be effective anymore. But let's say you have B cells that, if this is your antigen, okay, that's your antigen, that's the bad thing. Normally it might be attacking this protein on it or this part of it, but on another place on that antigen, there is a different place that can be attacked. And you could set up systems that attack this position or this position. So that's going to be a polyclonal response. You're going to go over and you might select more than one B cell, because there might be more than one B cell that can attack that. So it would be like if you want to attack me, and you're only going to give me a right punch to the jaw, eventually I'm going to block that right punch to the jaw. And then you go, gee, she knows how to block that right punch to the jaw. We're not going to be effective anymore. But somebody comes around the block and hits me under the knee, and I go falling. So that's a polyclonal response. So your body has, for a lot of these different types of invading organisms, more than one type of B cell to attack it, more than one route to attack it, which helps you when there's mutations or things that occur. Does that make sense? All right, so let's look at some of the other things. Okay. There's also a bunch of different types of antibodies that we're going to get into and we'll talk a bit more about later. Another name for an antibody is an immunoglobulin. Have you guys ever heard that term, immunoglobulin? Yes. So it actually means antibody. So if we take a look, I put down some of these immunoglobulins. They look different and they respond to different types of things. I listed some IgG, IgA, IgE, IgM. There's also an IgD, which we won't get into. That's sort of attached to different cell surfaces. But if we look at what's going on, the IgG is a very specific type of antibody. And that is the kind of antibody that is formed from those memory cells, from the second time you are exposed to something. So that's really important and something that we're going to talk about as the secondary response. We'll get to that next time. IgA are going to be things that are found in secretions of your body. So you actually put them out in secretions. So it could be tears, it could be mucus, vaginal secretions. All of these things are going to make IgAs. Milk, in milk, you're going to give your baby some of these IgAs as well. IgEs are found in inflammatory responses, and we're going to talk about that next time. It's also they're released from these cells called mast cells, and we'll talk about them. And when you have allergic responses, which is sort of an overactivation, these are the ones that are produced. Also during inflammatory responses, these are the ones that are really involved as well. And then the IgM, that's the original ones that are going to be produced from the first time that you see these different types of agents. So the very first time that you see it, this would be the IgMs. Okay. All right. Does anybody have any questions on that? Let's see how much time we have. All right, we'll just leave it here for now. And if you have any questions, I can answer your questions. I know that this is a little